Hey guys, new video here. Reminiscing on Abyss League. Once again, these videos, I'm just going through the landing pages of challenge leagues in which there are landing pages, because some of them don't, and we're gonna go through and like kind of recapture our thoughts when we saw this Abyss League when Grinding Gear, released the page, and we were all excited. And then we're gonna talk about how it kind of played out and how that league went. Once again, these are like one take videos, and so I'm just I'll miss a lot of stuff, but I'll try to remember the important stuff for the new players that maybe they might not they might not have played this league, or they might not really know some of the history behind some of the items that have become core in the game. So yeah, let's go. So the first thing to notice, if you scroll down here, is look how short this is, right? So if you compare this league to some of the new ones that we've had, right? Like this one doesn't even have like the supporter pack stuff at the bottom. I guess like that stuff will kind of disappear later on, but like look how short this is, right? I'm not like that zoomed in or anything, but there's like a little bit of the lore in the middle here. I remember we read through all this, we're like, oh man, new lore, like we're like, because lore is not that important in PoE, but it is really cool. So I remember I was like, oh man, this is gonna be like some big part of like the history of raid class, but really it ended up just being an addition that like no one really cared about, right? You just wanted your loot. And so Abyss League is around these like little cracks that open up in the ground, and I swear that there used to be like a video or a GIF playing here. Maybe that's on like another page or something, but there was like this GIF playing, and it was the first thing everyone saw. We're like watching the abyss cracks, because the ground will split open and you gotta follow the abyss crack. It'll split open into a circle that'll release maybe a couple rare mobs, and then it'll go on maybe a couple other times repeating. And we were like, that is really slow, right? Because we were used to I think Breach League was before this, and Abyss League came out, and we're like, that is super slow, right? You have to like follow the crack, kill like maybe like 5 monsters, and you gotta wait, and you gotta wait again. And that was like kind of concerning, right? Because once again, look at Blight League and how that turned out, right? So Abyss League, we were initially concerned about that, but more so we were like, is this going to be a speed farm league? And it actually turned out that it was, because Abyss, there's like 1 per map, and it actually went relatively fast. I think they even like speeded it up through the league, but it wasn't that bad, and the rewards were very fair for the time that the Abysses took, especially the unique items. Now the unique items will be the big focus of this video probably, because like these uniques are so crazy for the time that they came out, and even after a while they had to nerf some of them because they were that crazy. Okay, so let's go into it. So like what we can talk about, like a little bit of these things. When these came out, we're like wait a minute, these are like different kinds of jewels, right? Like what the hell, that sounds really interesting. And a Stygian Vice Abyssal Socket. Now Stygian Vice is also extremely powerful item if you're not wearing a headhunter, but they're actually missing a type of jewel here. There's like another white one, I forgot what it's called. I think it's like searching or something. But the Hypnotic came out, and this is kind of weighted towards casters, and like if you use spells. This one is very weighted towards minions. Now there are like generic things that if you look at the PoE wiki, it'll show you a weighting of like what stat can roll on what jewel, and the weighting of like how often that might occur. So there are things like life and mana that can show up on all of them, but just in general, this is like the hollow. Everyone knows the ghastly eye nowadays because of the Spectre meta in Blight, that this is the minion gem, and this is more the physical or not physical, sorry, the melee attack based gems. You can't roll double, you can't roll like double bow mods, right? You can't get like an cold damage to attacks and a bow thing, because it doesn't show up on this jewel. And the searching eye jewel, the white one that's not here, was primarily focused towards like bows, projectiles, things like that. Okay. And funny thing about this, there's also a unique version of this called a Darkness Enthroned. I had a wait, where are like the uniques? Wait, they didn't list all the uniques. Okay, well I'll just go over it. So there's 3 uniques, and it's kind of funny because the Darkness Enthroned was a Stygian Vice that was unique, and the implicit has one Abyssal Socket just like the Stygian, and then it had another Abyssal Socket. And I remember one of the first couple times that I got it, because it is the most common unique, I thought that you could corrupt it so that the implicit became some one of those belt implicits that could be very powerful. But actually I didn't know that the implicit was the socket itself, so you corrupt it and you just end up with like a bricked Stygian Vice with no stats on it. And yeah, that was pretty sad. So that was something funny that happened in that league. Another thing, I was actually kind of expecting that there'd be unique versions of these, because these were so different from the normal jewels that you could get. So it was like, is there gonna be unique versions? There were not unique versions of that, and that feels kind of bad, because if you look at the If you look at the normal jewels, the crimsons, the viridians, and the cobalts, like they all have like so many unique versions of them, right? And some of them have become iconic to the game, like inspired learning. I mean, there's also prismatics, right? The Watcher's Eyes, things like that. So it's kind of sad that Abyss doesn't have any unique jewels that are specific to this base type. But hey, in the future things could change, right? They could do like a how World of Warcraft has like a Cataclysm event. There could be something that kind of shakes up the core items of PoE in the future. Okay, other uniques, they only tease this one here, which is kind of surprising because this is actually arguably, along with the Darkness Node, is one of the worst ones. Now this is a bubonic trail. They can have up to 2 abyssal sockets, and when this came out in classic grinding gear fashion, they don't ever tell you, right? Like a lot of times, have you guys ever pressed your item hotkey button on these items on the webpage? Because in game, if you press your item like highlighting tool, it will show you exactly what that thing does, right? And mine is F, but like you can't see the details, right, in the roll ranges. So a lot of time we do this to the items whenever there's a new landing page that comes out. And this is pretty crazy because the Death Walk, although no one knew what it was, if you think back to other things like this, like the goat boots, the what are they called, Abyssal hooves, all these cool things like the goal, these items that have a special effect usually turn out, well, I shouldn't say usually, but they sometimes turn out to be special, right? In terms of how you play with them, how you feel about them. Like for me, I leveled as Abyssal once I figured out what that walk did. I use the goal on nearly every character if I can with the enchantment because of how powerful the generation of shrines is. And these items are just like so cool to the game, right? Because it kind of separates Diablo 3 from Path of Exile, because Path of Exile has things that truly change the way you play, whereas like Diablo 3, you might pick up a sword and it's like when you use this skill you gain 300% damage in this skill. And yeah, that does change the game, but not in the way that it'll completely change the way you play in PoE, right? So whenever you see a trigger a skill, grants a skill, like anything that is a skill attached to an item in PoE, you should be very, very excited. And Bubonic Trails was kind of like the start of that, but that pales in comparison to the next item, which we'll pretend is right here. Okay, once again, I didn't really prepare for this, so it's not. I was expecting it to be right here, but it's not. And that item is a hat. He's wearing it right here in this image, as you can see. And that hat is called the Lightpoacher, one of the craziest items to ever come out in PoE. Now, the Lightpoacher, just like the Bubonics, had 1 or 2 Abyssal sockets. And for the most part, if you could get the 2 Abyssal sockets, it was a little bit more rare. You wanted to, because it added a chance of slotting another one of these jewels. And what the Lightpoacher did is it had life, I think. It had up to 15 all res, so 45 total res, very strong. The 2 Abyssal sockets, extremely strong, because like you could just like juice up your character with hella damage. And these are unnerfed versions, by the way. In the last couple patches, they actually nerfed the Abyssal jewels so that the values, right, like T1, the high tier values were less, because what was happening was people were stacking like hella Abyssal jewels on their tree, and some of these Abyssal jewels like outweighed the explicits that you could get on weapons, to that point where like if you had the Abyssal jewels, it was such a huge more multiplier at certain points. And especially since a lot of the attack and range skills have a greater than 100% damage effectiveness, you can see how crazy stacking these would be, because even if you only take 2.3 point sockets on your skill tree, you could still get a free 2 in a belt, you get 2 in the helmet, you get like at one point you get 2 in the armor, you get 2 in the boots. It just got out of control. So I think the nerf was okay to these jewels, bringing down the values of the damage mods, and so and also making them harder to roll. So they reduced the damage and made them hard to hit the T1s. Let's go back to the helm here. So like some of the stats, oh yeah, pretty good, right? Now there is a stat on this helmet that says triggers a level 20 spirit burst, or just like these boots, it's a given skill on the item. You have to be wearing the item, and it's automatic. And what it would do is it would trigger a spirit burst if you had a spirit charge, right? And it granted you a spirit charge, and you started with 1 and you had an extra one for every abyssal jewels for every abyssal jewel that you had. So you could have like 5 spirit charges, and every time you used a skill, like let's say you shield charge, leap slam, use your actual cast, it would shoot out a nova of green projectiles. Think EK, a little bit slower than EK, but way for like 3 times the distance, because the projectile speed was huge. and you would shoot out, I think, like between, I think like 8 projectiles in a nova around you, and these projectiles would have innate pierce, and I believe they were physical base, I think, and so you could convert them, and then they did massive damage because the gems that you had in the helmet would also multiply their damage. So this was, I believe, an EK meta where people playing Magic find ethereal knives, and so every time you shield charged, every time you used a skill, a billion of these things flew out. And I also think that it was, this is just from memory, but I think it was like around 20% on the max roll to gain a spirit charge when you killed an enemy. And the spirit burst that you would fire out in a nova, those could kill the enemies, and that would count. It didn't have to be your regular skill like your EK or something. So you would just shield charge around, the projectiles would cover like 2 screens, it would pierce everything, kill everything, and then it would recharge itself. And so you can imagine this with your main skill. It was so crazy for map clear. So that you could, like, a lot of time, like let's say like 50% of the map, you could just rely on your movement skill to proc the Spirit Nova, and that was just like, man, that was so fun. I don't know anyone who was like map farming without a Lightpoacher, because the Pierce was it was innate to the skill. It could go over ledges, right? So depending on where you were, it would you know how like ledges sometimes stop projectiles like spark and stuff, but no, this is like true like directional AoE, and the coverage was really crazy. Okay, and the speed at which you could fire these out, because it didn't have a cooldown like some other skills, right? Like, you know how like if you craft a trigger socketed skills, it's like what, like 4 or 5 second cooldown. Well, this one, if you could shield charge 10 times in 1 second, you could fire, if there was enough mobs to kill, you could fire 10 of these bursts in 1 second as well. So it was uncapped, which is really crazy. And remember, 2 Abyssal Jewels in there as well. So yeah, completely ridiculous item. Next item, it's also not shown here, but it is the Shroud of the Lightless, right? And this is kind of cool because actually I think it's cool. I think it's a good thing that they don't show all the uniques in the landing page, because then it gives you something to figure out, right? Like, so like finding the Lightpoacher, testing it out, the Tomb Fist as well, and then the Stygian, what's it called? The Darkness Enthroned? Wait, no, it's called I don't even remember what the chest is called, okay? But it is basically a chest, and at the time, it could roll 1 or 2. They changed that a few leagues later where it can only roll 1, so it's a 5 link, with the 6 link being the damage penetration that's on the chest itself. So lots of time, if you look at the game nowadays and you have 2-handed weapons that can have 6 links, you don't necessarily need a chest that has a 6 link, right? It's wasted. So in this case, this chest armor could have 2 abyssal sockets. So once again, really crazy if you feed into the Lightpoacher, and just for like the stats on the two gems. And then what it also gave is I think it gave some kind of recovery, but the big thing was the penetration. So I think the gem, the pseudo gem that's attached to a skill socketed in the chest was, I think, 20% penetration to all elements. And I personally remember this chest because I played Fire Trap, and Fire Trap with the Malachi's mask, the upgraded one, the prophesied one, you could have like all sorts of damage attached to the Fire Trap, because Fire Trap damage effectiveness was so big, and then you just penetrate all the kinds of resistance and you just one-shot everything. If you want to go full glass cannon, and that was a lot of fun, right? Lots of uses for that chest then, and even now it's still kind of powerful. It looks really cool, as you can see from the unique art here. Okay, iconic item that is still in the game, that is still widely used for attack-based characters, is the Toomey Fist, and the Toomey Fist is what he's wearing right here. There's a pair of black gloves. They can still have 2 sockets, and then they in the current version, what they did is they removed the attack speed modifier from it. They're still up to a 6% life modifier and all the other stuff, but they removed the attack speed modifier because they apparently thought that was too OP, but Intimidate on it was fine. So the way it works is, if you have one of these, a Murderous Eye in there, you get Intimidate, and if you have a Searching Eye in there, I believe you maim or hinder. It's one of those, right? And that one doesn't really matter, because the Intimidate is like the more damage multiplier once it hits the enemy. And so these gloves are still a core part of the game. If you play any kind of attack build that's not Magic Find, you will definitely think about using these gloves, and especially now that you can double corrupt and stuff. So like these gloves, if you double corrupt or even single corrupt an LE weakness on there, frenzy charge, maybe crits, right? Crits to your attacks, or any combination of those two, they become 50 to 100 exalts depending on the time in the league. So an amazing base item that's not that expensive for a 2-socket, but it can one of the best parts of PoE is that you can take a good item, and then scale it to incredible heights with the corruption chamber or a corruption orb, and that's really cool, right? So like getting this considerable end game item is not just the end game, because there's still so many tiers that you can get to it, and introducing items like that I think is a acceptable level of power creep, because the item itself is undeniably strong, but if you want to invest, if you want to jamble, if you want to go big dick and spend a lot of money on buying a lot of these pairs of gloves to corrupt yourself or double corruption chamber yourself, you can be rewarded in an extraordinary way, and that's once again one of the things that excites me about PoE in the future, that there will be more. Not only are there more skill gems, not only are there more support gems and items, but those can be scaled up depending, right? And that's pretty badass. So that's all the items. The challenge rewards were, in my opinion, kind of iffy. You see the wings right there? I believe that the wings were a 12 challenge, and I think that the 24 challenge was it the portal? I actually don't even know. Wait, it says it right here. I'm an idiot. Okay. At 12 challenge, you got the Abyssal helmet, which it doesn't look that great. It's kind of cool in the sense that it's like a full helmet that covers everything. 24 is the wings, which you see right here. Those are okay. They go with some of the darker black colored sets, and then the 36 challenge that most people want for is Abyssal portal effect. Now this is actually kind of an interesting portal because it looks kind of like a clogged toilet. I remember like thinking that when I first saw it. But it does have certain pay-to-win features. Well, not pay-to-win, but like it's kind of like, you know how sometimes your portal can block certain things, you can accidentally click on it? This portal is actually lowered to the ground in a way where it's very small, and it's very hard to click on the portal itself when you're trying to click on an item behind it. You know what I mean? In that sense, it was a kind of a cool portal. So totem pole, who cares? This was December 8th, 2017. So this is almost 2 years ago. That's crazy. That's almost 2 years ago. Wow. In total, I think the rewards were fine. There was an issue with liches for a very, very long time in this league. You just weren't getting liches, right? So, oh, my mom's home. Okay, so for a long time in this league, you weren't getting any liches, right? And that was a huge complaint on Reddit. Hi. I'm making a video right now. Oh. Yeah. Okay, so for a long time in this league, you just weren't getting liches, right? The rate was probably like 1 in 100. Even though you could encounter like an abyssal depths maybe once every, I'd say once every 2 or 3 maps, the chance of getting a lich might have been 1 in 100. So that was really bad, and everyone was complaining about that. And thankfully they listened, and then they changed they put in a patch in which the liches became a lot more common. Another cool thing that people figured out is that if you had a shaper background screen when you loaded into the abyssal depths, then you knew for 100% chance that was a lich, like guaranteed, right? And if you saw Lion Eyes Watch, then it was not a lich. So if you wanted to skip the pylon at the end, because the pylon was like not that great, right? It could drop jewels and stuff, but it just took a long time if you couldn't one-shot it. So after that, it became a little bit better. They also made improvements to the tracking of the cracks and the circle when they open up, so that was pretty good. In terms of the challenges, there are, I think, 3 or 4 different liches. The guy that was kind of tough, he was like part of the challenge. You had to kill him, and he was one of the named guys that was like the rarest one. He'd be like the Chayubi of Abyss League. He was also kind of hard to find, but I think since this league, you know, challenges became, well, best tier challenges were kind of tough, but challenges as a whole, well, actually, hold on. Actually, Synthesis was kind of tough too with some of the challenges if you didn't play the Nexus very well. But overall, challenges have become a lot easier. So that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and maybe I'll keep doing more of these. Abyss League, I gave it actually an A rating because Abyss was fun. I played a long time, and the rewards were fair, and the items introduced and the way it's introduced into the core game have been kind of iconic, right? Like those items and kind of the fights and stuff. And also, it's in the delve and stuff like that, so that's pretty cool. I'm surprised it's not in the temple, but that's for another day for like suggestions for the game. Okay, thanks for watching my video. Okay, bye.